Adrian. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. It's nice to meet you after a long time. Welcome to Mind Fitness Movement podcast. And, it's my honor and great pleasure to talk to you after a very long time, maybe a decade now. I know the first time when I saw you was sometime in 2013 or 14. I know you were a flight instructor at Hillsborough Aero Academy, and you were also working for FedEx at the time, part time. And I was in the flight school doing my flight training, and I was also working as a dispatch. So I'm very excited to hear about your flying adventure and how have you been? I'm sure you they would have gone through a lot of struggles and triumphs, and I would love to hear about your career in flying.
Hey, thanks for having me, Vetri. And yes, it has been a while. In fact, if you saw my kids today, who used to be in and out of there almost as much as I was, you
Yes,
wouldn't even
yes.
recognize them now. So I'm trying to fathom like 10 or 11 years ago
Yeah.
when my youngest, he would have been, he'd been like 8 or 9,
Yeah, I
and
know you.
so.
You were like I saw you as a very hardworking father, pursuing your dream of flying and also supporting the family. And apart from flying, I used to see you working for FedEx. I mean, you were working very hard.
Yes. I I had 2 jobs. I took the long road. I was kind of a late bloomer in all this. I went to college late because I went to the
Huh.
military first, and
Okay.
I don't think I started flying until I was about 26. Which
Oh, okay.
most people in the game, they're starting at 18, 19, maybe even 16.
Yeah,
But I'm
by
starting at
26.
26.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
26 they are already flying. What flying? First officers or yeah.
Oh, yeah. I knew a guy, he got his ATP, his birthday of,
Uh-huh.
20, he was 23.
Uh-huh.
His birthday, he got his ATP that
Oh.
day. I
Uh-huh.
got my ATP when I was 36.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Okay.
and he was 23. So,
Oh, okay. Can you, right now, I know you told me that you are working with the Empire Airlines. So
yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about your routine in a day as a first officer with your Empire Airlines? This is your routine like.
Yeah. So the day in the life of a first officer at Empire, to me, uh, this job is, I shouldn't say easy because, it's not easy, but it is not, it is not the most difficult job in the world, if I could say.
Okay.
So in fact, one of the hardest parts for me is having to get up at 5:20 in the morning. That
Okay.
is probably one of the
Okay.
hardest parts of the
Okay.
day.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and as I go on, you'll learn why. So, I'm hopping up about 5:10, 5:20 in the morning. I
Okay.
arrive at the airport. I come in on the FedEx side at the cargo ramp, so
Okay.
I don't have to go through TSA or any of that stuff. I walk
Okay.
in through
Okay.
FedEx. I show my
Uh-huh.
ID. I go
Okay.
in the door. I walk about a half a mile to the airplane,
Uh-huh.
and I'm showing up there at the airplane at about 6:33 every
Okay.
morning. I have
Okay.
2 IDs I have to use, my Empire ID,
Yep.
and we get a FedEx vendor badge. And that
Yes.
just says, hey, I'm an associate of Fed, not an employee, but an associate of FedEx. I can be on this ramp.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, like I said, I show up to the airplane at about 6:33.
Mm-hmm.
I do what you call a pre-flight, and I'll
Okay.
just walk around and I'll inspect the airplanes.
Okay.
Uh, Make sure the props, are attached and
Uh-huh.
they're in good condition.
Uh-huh.
No nicks. I make sure that the wings are in good working order.
Okay.
Um, and, we didn't have, there's just no debris, or sometimes when it's cold, like in the wintertime, I'm looking for frost and
Yeah.
stuff. That way
Yes.
I can notify the FedEx crew that, hey, we're going to need to de-ice the airplane.
Oh,
And
okay. What
so
aeroplane is it? What model is it?
it
Make,
is an
model?
ATR 72.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
or an ATR 42.
Okay.
Probably about 90% of the time I fly the ATR 72. Okay, so yeah, I walk around, I do a pre-flight and
Mm-hmm.
just inspecting the exterior of the aircraft and just
Mm-hmm.
making sure everything's in good working order. There's no damage, there's no fluid leaking, um, or anything like that. No dents or dings. Making sure all
Mm-hmm.
the lights are working, the nav lights, just every exterior light we have. I'll make sure that
Mm-hmm.
those work.
Mm-hmm.
And also checking some of the compartments. Part of my pre-flight inspection is called a security check, which is a very important check that we have to do, especially in 121 operations. They want us checking like under the landing gear bay, the
Uh,
doors and stuff. They want us looking under there, just making sure that nobody's placed any kind of contraband, um, explosives, or
mm-hmm.
anything like that. We also have some compartments that we need to look into, and
Mm-hmm.
most of the time they're dark, so we're out there with our flashlight,
Mm-hmm.
just making sure there's no contraband. Same thing I do when I get inside the airplane. I'm looking in the cargo hold area for any contraband. I'm
Mm-hmm.
walking the span of the airplane all the way to the back,
Mm-hmm.
where they keep some chocks and what we call a flyaway kit. And I'm looking for contraband back there too. So just
Mm-hmm.
making sure nobody tampered with the airplane and nobody left any kind of explosives or contraband in there.
Mm-hmm.
When I get up to the flight deck, there's places that I look for
Mm-hmm.
that too. And
Okay.
so then at that point, my exterior pre-flight is complete. My
Mm-hmm.
security check is complete. And
Okay.
now, what I run in and do is we do what you call an acceptance checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And what the acceptance checklist is we just test the basic systems of the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
We review the maintenance logs and make sure that that the airplane's airworthy condition. Then after that, we're standing around outside supervising the load.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking for is we're just making sure that the boxes being loaded are being loaded in the proper zones, because
Mm-hmm.
we have weight and balance issues.
Yes.
That airplane, oftentimes, just the other day we came back with 10,000 pounds of almost 11,000 pounds of cargo, right?
Uh,
And you don't want all that in the aft zone, right? So we do a
yeah.
weight and balance to distribute the load throughout the airplane.
Okay.
So the airplane will fly correctly. So we're just making sure the correct weight and the correct cargoes going in the right zones. We're also looking for hazmat, hazardous materials, because they go in a certain place on the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the hazmat has to get tied down in a certain area. So we make sure that that happens too. We're
Mm-hmm.
verifying paperwork because we have to carry paperwork for all the hazmat that we have on board.
Okay.
So we do that, and we're standing theoretically, or yeah, theoretically, or realistically, FedEx is supposed to have the airplane loaded in an hour, but sometimes it takes longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then after they load the airplane, we verify that they pull all the chocks and remove all the they put cones around the airplanes
Mm-hmm.
wings and engines so people won't drive close to them. We just
Yeah.
verify all that's removed, and then
Mm-hmm.
we get in the airplane, close all the doors, lock her up, start her up, and off we go for the taxi, then the takeoff. And
Mm-hmm.
Medford's about an hour flight.
Okay.
Um,
Where you fly
yeah,
from? Which place?
out of
From
Portland.
Oh, you are based
Por-
in Portland right now?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
based in
Okay.
Portland, just
Okay.
down to Medford. It could be as short as about 50 minutes. I think that's
Yeah.
the record that I recorded.
Uh-huh.
But typically it's an hour because sometimes you have to do instrument procedures.
Mm-hmm.
We're traveling down there at about usually use about 17,000 feet to get
Mm-hmm.
down there to
Okay.
Medford. And then when we land, if we're on time, it's about a 6.5, 7 hour layover.
Mm-hmm.
The company's kind enough to get us a hotel.
Okay.
And so, we can, that's kind of our downtime. We can do what we want.
Okay.
Um, I usually eat, take a walk, work out, have lunch,
Mm-hmm.
watch some TV, do some reading.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a nap's one of my favorite things to do. So I'll try to score a nap every day. And
Okay.
then, pretty much we get up and, we need to be back at the airplane, at about 15:10, and
Okay.
so we go back and we do exactly what I just told you in the reverse order, and
Okay.
we fly on back. It's they're very short legs, they're only an hour. That's why I say this job is not particularly hard.
So can you tell us about your childhood?
Yeah. Um. So I have no major complaints about my childhood. I had a good
Mm-hmm.
childhood. Um. I grew up with both of my grandparents and my
Mm-hmm.
mom
Mm-hmm.
under one roof. My mom and dad were divorced by the time
Okay.
I could even remember. So my mom helped my grandparents out a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot. Um, when I was young, I had a lot of family support.
Mm-hmm.
I had my grandparents, I had my grandfather, I had my grandmother, and I had my mom. So I had three sets of eyes watching out on me. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming,
Uh-huh.
because they're all a little strict, but
Uh-huh.
not too bad. Not
Okay.
too bad. I
Mm-hmm.
also grew up as the only child,
Mm-hmm.
so but it was good. I grew up in northeast Portland, which some people call the Numbers, out by Glenarvar Golf Course. It was a predominantly white neighborhood, white middle class neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
Um, Going to my elementary school, there would be a couple years I was the only black kid in school,
Okay.
or African American in school, and I think at the most in elementary school there was about four African Americans
Uh-huh.
there. As I got into junior high and high school, it became a bit more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So uh, that was pretty interesting. But I had friends and I had cousins and I had families who
Mhm.
who lived in what we called the neighborhood at the
Uh-huh.
time, and I'd spend a
Okay.
lot of time with them. So I had a good mix of of being around different cultures
Okay.
and things like that.
I know your mom will be very proud today of what you have accomplished. And
Yeah, she tells me almost daily.
yes.
So
So how was your adulthood and college?
I always had somewhere in the back of my head ever since I was young, that I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
My uncle was a naval aviator, so
Okay.
he had a big influence on me going into the military. And so
Mhm.
what I thought I was going to do is go into the military
Mhm.
and do an officer. I went in and enlisted,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to do an officer transition program to
Mm-hmm.
where, a couple years into it, there's a transition program. They send you to aviation officer candidate school, and then I could fly off aircraft carriers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, being that uh, I was, I didn't do very well in school until the end of my 10th grade year, until the end of my
Okay.
sophomore year. But
Mm-hmm.
I totally wasn't prepared to take any kind of college entrance exam.
Uh-huh.
And I took a ACT test. It's just
Okay.
it's a kind of college entry exam. But I
Okay.
didn't even know what ATC was or ACT was because out here on the West Coast, mostly they take SATs for college
Uh-huh.
entrance exams.
Okay.
So I just took this test and I had no idea about, and I scored very, very poorly on it.
Okay.
And so that kind of discouraged me for the time,
Mm-hmm.
um, from being an officer. I was like, or a pilot period. I was like, nah, maybe I'm not smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, got out of the military, started
Mm-hmm.
working blue collar jobs, decided that that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, I had the GI Bill through the military. So I started using that and, just took some college courses, core classes,
Mm-hmm.
English, writing, mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was working full time, going to college part time
Mm-hmm.
and started doing really well in those classes, like A's and B's. And I'm like, I never got consistent A's and B's. It was like A's, B's, C, 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 D.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, and I just kept on going because I knew I had a goal. I didn't know what it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I just kept on taking the classes until I started off at PCC.
Okay.
I transferred to Mount Hood Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I got an associate's transfer.
Okay.
I decided to major in biology,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhere near the end of my junior year, um, you know, I was I figured that hey, I've gotten this far with a science degree, which like it was not a walk in the park for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
very very difficult. But I figured that if I'm going to be graduating with a science degree,
Mm-hmm.
I can probably fly airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, probably the start of my senior year there, my last year at the college, um, I just started doing some research on some local flight schools, and then that's where I found
Mm-hmm.
HAA. I graduated in 2007 or 2008, and 2 weeks later, I was flying. I was working on my private. I was a student pilot at HAA.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, just getting that degree kind of, it
So
helped a lot. It brought back.
what was your degree in associate degree in science? That's what you got?
I ended up with a Bachelor of Science. So I got my associate's transfer. I left that part out to, Portland State.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I skipped that part.
Uh-huh.
Portland State, and then I
Yeah.
finished at Portland State with a Bachelor of Science
Okay.
in biology and a minor
Okay.
in chemistry.
So can you tell me how did you catch the flying dream? Like how did you catch that flying bug? How did it come to you?
Honestly, ever since I was, I don't know, 5, 6, or 7,
Huh?
I always wanted to be a pilot. And
Okay.
there's several reasons why. I mean, I loved toys that were airplanes. And so
Okay.
like 90% of my toys were airplanes,
Okay.
whether they were Legos, models, RC planes when I was younger. Um, big metal airplanes or whatever.
Uh,
Paper airplanes,
okay.
styrofoam airplanes. I always loved airplanes. I always found them fascinating.
Uh,
Um, my aunt was a flight attendant for United Airlines for over 40 years.
oh, I
And
see. Okay.
so back then, traveling standby was easy.
Okay.
You could get on and go anywhere you want. It's not like today where
Uh-huh.
it's a struggle to get places.
Yeah.
So I got the opportunity to fly a lot as a kid,
Hmm.
and I loved airplanes. Just everything from the smell of them
Hmm.
to how the seats looked
Yep.
to how the flight deck looked. I liked
Yes.
talking to the pilots. I
Uh-huh.
liked how all the controls looked and felt,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
all the little because back then, you got little souvenirs, and they would let you up in the flight deck, and the
Yeah.
pilots would talk to you,
Uh-huh.
and all that stuff. And so I got a lot of exposure to airplanes when I was younger, and so
Okay.
that's how I
S-
grew to love them.
So what inspired you to become a pilot? Is there any thing you remember? Can you share?
Yes. So I'm a second generation pilot, third generation flight crew. And so
Okay.
my grandfather, he was flight crew on B-17 bombers back in the World
Okay.
War II
I
eras.
see. Okay.
My uncle was a naval aviator,
Uh-huh.
and now I'm a pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandson has to be the next pilot because my kids they have no interest. That's how I kind of knew.
Okay.
It
Cool.
was it
Very
was
good.
like it's like a family calling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's nice.
And this is also one of my biggest childhood and best childhood memories is my uncle went to Embry-Riddle down in
Mm-hmm.
Daytona Beach, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was, I don't know, about fifth or sixth grade,
Mm-hmm.
he took me up in a Cessna 172
Oh,
and let
okay.
me.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool.
And it was amazing. And
Yeah.
after that, that's just kind of solidified everything for me. And I
Yeah.
was like, I want to fly one of these
Yeah.
things when I get older.
Can you share about your struggle and triumphs during your flight training years from, private to instrument, then commercial, then multi-engine, and then I know I saw you as a flight instructor and as a CFI, the certified flight instructor. How was your, what was your journey?
Well, I can tell you this. I had plenty more struggles than triumphs.
Okay, I relate to that, I can relate to that. Yes.
Yeah. So for starters, struggle wise is, you know, the average youngster coming out of high school or in college that not married, doesn't have any kids, they can work their way from private pilot all the way up to CFI, uh, and, get their hours in 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
or less. I mean, if you do an accelerated program, I had kids. By the time I started flight training, I had two kids that I had to support. And
Mhm.
yeah, I had to work at FedEx and I would be back and forth, uh, between, full time and part time having to
Mhm.
work. And so, you know, flying at most, I could only do 4 time, whether I was training or being a CFI or anything like that. So it took me 2.5 times as long as it would the average person.
Mhm.
And so, that was one of the things that I struggled with because I'm just, you know, it's taken a long time. It's going to take forever. I'm going to be 30 something by the time, I get to this part. And so that was probably one of the hardest things that I had to deal with was just being patient and kind of letting things happen.
Mhm.
Another struggle, which everybody runs into, well, I'm not going to say everybody. Some people, they'll go through a 4-year program, they'll be a CFI, and they're on this 4-year program, and then they're done. But what a lot of people have to do, if you have to work, you run out of money. And so
I am there.
you run out of money. And
I am
so I just,
right now. Yeah, absolutely. I ran out of money so many times.
I even took out a $47,000 loan. Now that doesn't sound like much these days, because from what I understand, it's about 100 grand to go all the way to CFI or whatever.
It
But
is a
back in
hundred grand all the way. Yeah,
back in 2008, it wasn't that expensive.
yeah.
Um, $47,000 did not cover it, and so I was having to do things like use my tax returns for flight training.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back nice tax returns because I had children.
Hmm.
Um, but they were all, instead of doing vacation and buying the kids something really, really nice, well, it was all going to flight training. And
Hmm.
so, and keep in mind, I think I forgot to mention this, that at the time during my flight training, and that I was uh, uh, early in to being a CFI, I had my kids anywhere between 50 to 70% of the time, um, or 50 to 80% of the time. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah, I would have them for the most part. And so I was a
okay,
single parent. I had a lot of family support.
okay,
And I couldn't have done it without my mom or my aunt or the
okay.
rest of my family.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so, yeah, I ran out of money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, I, I, I started putting some stuff on credit cards, which is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not advisable if you don't have to. Then I took a personal loan from a friend of mine and stuff, but,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I did it, and it all worked out and it paid off. So let's see. So in my training, my private pilot training, it was pretty straightforward. No snags, no issues. My instrument training was a little bit of a different story. It was going all fine until we got into hold and hold entries and hold
Yeah,
procedures.
yeah.
And I really, really struggled with it. I had a good CFI, but
Mm-hmm.
he was very limited in explaining hold entry procedures to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't clear
Okay,
to me. And then I got so frustrated. I was just like, I was ready to quit. That's how
okay.
flustered I was. And he
Mm-hmm.
came up with an idea. He was like, why don't you start your multi-engine training and just come back to it? And so in the middle of my instrument, I started my multi-engine training, got my multi-engine private add-on,
Mm.
and my instructor said, quit wasting your time. He's like, buy flight simulator. So at the time, it was Flight Simulator X, I think it was, that was out.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
Microsoft flights.
Microsoft Flight
Yes.
Simulator. And he
Yep.
said, fly holds. He's like, before you start flying in the
Yep.
airplane again,
Hmm.
fly holds.
That's what
And
I also
so,
did. Yeah, for my instrument. Flights
yep,
flying in the. I had Microsoft in 2012. I think Microsoft had its flight simulator thing. For the. Yeah. And
yeah,
Rod Mercado, if you remember this flight
yeah,
instructor, he
yeah,
had narrated. He had compiled it, and it was good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I started doing that every day, 30 minutes to an hour a day until I finally got them.
Mhm.
And went back and I got the holds, and uh, went up and took my instrument check ride, and everything was going good until the time turn. the partial panel
Mhm.
non-precision approach,
Yeah.
and I failed, and that was the last thing that we did. The whole ride was good up to that point.
Okay.
And then I did the partial panel non-precision approach on the VOR DME Charlie into Hillsboro, which I'm sure you've done once or twice.
Yes. Yes. I have done that. Yes, I remember it.
The thing that got me was, even though the rest of the flight went well,
Mm.
the weather was not great.
Okay.
It was the thing that got me on that is it was a lot of turbulence, especially because the VOR sits on a hill, and it's
Mhm.
always turbulent there because
Yeah.
you get the wind colliding,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
then you got all that turbulence. So the turbulence just kind of it got to me, and I was just way off. Plus, we
Mhm.
were in actual.
Mhm.
However, key takeaway:
Mhm.
when you are walking out to the airplane with the examiner,
Mhm.
and the examiner looks up in the sky and goes, "Are you sure you want to go today?"
Mhm.
Your answer should be no.
Okay.
Your, your answer should be no, because then they're looking at the weather. That's kind of a hint.
Mhm.
But I didn't say no. I said, "Nope, I'm ready. Let's go."
Okay.
And so, just the point I'm trying to make is
Yeah, I
take the
understand.
take the small hints.
Yes.
Take the
Okay.
small hints.
And then what happened?
Um,
So after what did they reschedule, or how was it?
yeah, I rescheduled. I went up on a VFR day.
Uh-huh.
All we had to do was the VOR DME Charlie, and
Okay.
I
Okay.
knocked it out of the park. It
Okay.
was
Okay.
easy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I let the weather get to me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so then it was time to do my commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Started my commercial off, and I was really excited about the commercial part because that's when they were starting to open up the Troutdale campus. I was
Okay.
driving all the way. I live on the east side,
Uh-huh.
so I was driving all the way 40 minutes to
Okay.
an hour to Hillsboro
Okay.
for my lessons.
Uh-huh.
But they had opened up Troutdale at the time, and so then I started the satellite campus at Troutdale at the time. So I
Mm-hmm. I
started
trained
there.
in Troutdale.
Yes.
Yes, I was trained in Troutdale only. Yeah.
Um, and so about halfway through my commercial, there came a point I needed to get my complex hours.
Okay.
So we had to do that in the RG.
Mm-hmm.
And so the RG, I don't know if you remember about the RGs in Hillsboro Aviation,
I know
but they would
one
always,
RG. Yeah.
it's always maintenance issues.
Yes.
So I sat one time about 3 weeks, no flying, because I was just at a point to where all I kind of had left to do was to get my complex hours. And I think at the time it was like 10.
Yeah,
You
10
needed like
hours.
10.
Even
Yeah,
now it
10
is 10
hours.
only. It is 10 hours even now. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Um, and I couldn't, and I couldn't get that because the airplane was always down. And so that's when I went over to Gorge Winds,
Okay.
and they had a Piper Arrow
Yeah,
over there.
Piper. Yes.
So I started flying that.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was, so I got my commercial out of, Gorge Winds, and, finished my commercial and my CFI. And I started being a CFI over there at Gorge Winds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I did that for about 8 or 9 months, but I wanted to get hours faster
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't getting any younger.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I came back to Hillsborough Aero Academy.
Oh, that's where we met. Because at that
Yep.
time you were a CFI.
Yeah.
You left Gorge Winds and you came to Troutdale Hillsborough Aviation. And then after some time, I left Gorge. I joined Gorge Winds.
Yeah. And
It
you
was
went
a
across the runway.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So,
So, um, my commercial,
hmm
uh, Gorge Winds, I had a really good instructor over there, which
hmm
made the commercial check ride, um, fun and easy. And check
oh,
rides aren't really supposed to be fun.
yeah,
Um, my CFI, I took my CFI check ride with an FAA inspector.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
hmm
So
hmm
if you've ever taken a CFI, which, people know the horror stories of the CFI check ride,
hmm
and then now you're going with the Fed, now you're going
hmm
with the FAA.
hmm
Vetri, it turned out to be one of the best check rides of my life. I was prepared. I was over prepared for one.
hmm
That's just kind of how I operate.
hmm
If I don't feel I'm over prepared, then I feel underprepared.
hmm
Um, but it was one of the best check rides of my life. Everything was going very, very well, very, very smooth.
hmm
And, one of the things I felt I did the best on was like soft field landings.
hmm
And I thought soft field landings were just, I thought they got easy to me for a while.
hmm
My last landing, soft field landing, came in, bounced it,
uh-huh.
added power, smoothed out the landing, pull off the runway, and the guy, the FAA inspector, he drops his head like this and looks over at me, and I'm like, oh, dude, I just failed. He's like, what should have been done? I was like, I know, I should have went around. He's like, well, why didn't you? I was like, I just feel very comfortable in this airplane, and I've been flying a lot, and the winds, on my check ride day, the winds were gusting 30 to 43.
My goodness, it's beyond
Yeah.
the limit of the plane.
Well, no, because it was kind of straight down the runway.
Oh, I
It
see.
was,
Okay, it was
yes.
straight. Okay,
So it
okay.
wasn't across.
It was
Yeah, it
not a
was just
crosswind.
about down the pipe. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
But, flying in Troutdale, my
Uh-huh.
instructor liked to fly in the wind. And
Okay,
so I'd go up on the windiest day. So I got used to flying in the wind. I felt very comfortable flying in the wind.
okay.
And so, well, he kind of threw me a bone, and, he's like, okay, we're going to try this one more time. He's like, you're going to instruct me and talk me through a soft field landing. Then you're going to go and you're going to demonstrate safe soft field landing.
hmm
And that's what I did. And I passed.
Okay,
So
that was good.
it was good. That was good.
Okay,
It scared me because I thought, I mean, anybody, I mean, they could fail you for that,
yeah.
but it's at their discretion, right? So it
hmm
wasn't unsafe.
hmm
Um, it probably wasn't the best aeronautical decision making,
hmm
but it was safe. And the rest of the check ride went well, so well. So he gave me the
Okay,
benefit of the doubt, which I appreciate.
yeah, that's good. He gave you a chance, so that's the point. Um, Good. So, how did you manage to get your 1,500 hours? I know in
Being a flight
Empire,
instructor,
yeah, I think in Empire they ask minimum 2,000 hours, right?
no, in fact, to fly the caravan, I believe it's only 1,200 hours total time.
Okay.
Yes. And to be a first officer, it's 1,500 hours. And to be a
Okay.
captain there, then the total's 2,000
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah,
hours.
please tell us how did you
But,
manage to get your minimum hours and all that?
being a flight instructor, like I said,
Okay.
starting at Gorge Winds, I wasn't getting enough hours quick enough. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think I spent about 4 years being a flight instructor, which most people can do it in like two.
Oh, yeah, 4 years.
But
Oh my goodness, that was a long time.
I had to do, I had to work at FedEx part time though, so I
Uh-huh.
could only do so much.
How many flights you were
Then
logging in per week?
I would say during the summertime and when the weather was good, Uh, I could probably get in six, 30, 30 hours maybe,
Mhm.
a week.
Okay.
So, I'm not really sure how many flights that would be because sometimes, I had instrument students and I'd double them up.
Okay.
But I remember about 30 hours, but for a really good week, sometime between 35 and 40 hours.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Uh, so how did you get this work where you are right now? How did you get hired to this present job?
so,
How did you land
uh,
up where you are right now?
so that's interesting. Uh, I had I went to Horizon for a little bit and I
Okay.
was training for the Q400 and I had a
Uh-huh.
very bad training experience there.
Oh.
Um, and so I ended up resigning and, I came back to Hillsborough Aero Academy
Mhm.
and I met this guy in orientation
Mhm.
who, who wanted to work part time as a flight instructor. Well,
Mhm.
he happened to fly the Caravan in Portland for
Oh,
Empire
okay.
and, got to know him and I just started asking him questions about, Empire and
Uh-huh.
he told me, well, hey, we got a couple people, we got somebody who's going to retire and a couple people moving on.
Mhm.
And he's like, you can use me as a reference. So, throw an application in and I'll tell them to look out for your name.
Mhm.
Threw the application in, did the interview, and the rest is history.
Oh, so you started with the caravan in Empire, and when
Yep.
was that? When did you start that?
I started in January of 2019.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
flew the Caravan for 3.5 years.
Uh-huh.
And I have been flying the ATR now for about two exactly,
Okay,
almost
that's good.
exactly two
So when you
years.
are flying caravan, you were the only single pilot, right? It's a single pilot operation?
Is a single pilot operation.
Okay. I know the caravan
It
is
is
pretty big. They what, Cessna 208 or what is it? What is that?
208. Yep,
208 or 206?
208.
Okay. Okay.
208 Bravo.
All right. Yeah. It's pretty big.
Yeah,
I've seen, I did an informational interview for my aviation degree program. We had to do a aviation career. There is a subject. And at that time, we had to do some informational interview. So I did one of the informational interview with the Empire chief pilot. Yes.
Was it Russ Polasin?
Yes. Res Polassen. Yes. Yes.
He's still there. He's
He's
still
still there?
flying.
All
He's
right.
still there.
Say
I
my
don't
hi
think
to
Russ
him.
is ever going to retire. I will.
Okay, okay. Can you share what interests you and excites you about this job most?
um, yeah, everything.
Mm-hmm.
No. So, even from the time I was a kid, I still love airplanes. They're
Mm-hmm.
exciting, they're intriguing, they're fascinating. Um, I enjoy the science because I'm a scientist at heart. Um, but I enjoy the science of learning about, physics of the airplane and
Mm-hmm.
aerodynamics,
Mm-hmm.
how different wings fly and how they generate lift and things like that. And just how all the systems are integrated into flying airplanes. Some of the systems are really fascinating on how they're designed. Uh, I'll give you a little bit of a lesson here that you probably already know.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Flaps in
Yes,
an airplane.
yes.
Do you know the inception of flaps or how flaps were even created
No.
or why?
I know why,
Well,
because they increase the surface area, they increase more lift, and especially when you are taking off, with a little bit of flap, you can take off, you can get off the ground pretty easily. And then when you're coming down, also, if it will reduce the speed, so that's what I know about the flaps.
hmm
And also when you do slow flight, when you put the flaps maximum flat, you can fly slowly even at the maximum angle of attack. You can maintain it. So flaps are pretty big, to slow the plane and to fly at a slow speed. Flaps, they are a big help. That's what I know about flaps.
Yep. Uh, early airplanes, Wright brother days. A little bit later, right? Airplanes
Yeah,
really didn't have flaps.
yeah, they didn't.
They didn't have any of that until I cannot remember the name of the person, but it was a
Hmm.
person sitting around in nature
Hmm.
watching birds
Hmm.
take off and how they land and kind of flap their wings kind of like this,
Uh-huh.
in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so he noticed these feathers on the aft section of their wings
Uh-huh.
and just kind of what they're doing to either take off and get lift
Uh-huh.
or to kind of destroy lift and descend.
Okay.
And so by watching birds fly, that's how flaps came about, basically.
It's a pretty
Pretty
interesting
simple, huh?
knowledge. Oh my goodness, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah.
very, yeah,
Just
it's
by
amazing.
watching
Birds.
nature,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
we got a lot to learn. And
We are
so, I
gonna.
mean, there's things like that are just really intriguing to me. To me, flying is it's you know uh you remember your first time getting in a car and driving, and you're all excited, or even getting in the airplane and taking off and flying your first time. I mean, how exciting it was.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that first or second time. But like, if you could come close, I come close to it every day. It's still exciting for me.
Okay.
And I got a lot to learn, and I got a lot more airplanes to fly. And so
Hmm.
that motivates me. That motivates me, even more, and to learn about those aircraft systems. And, I love feeling the pressure of the flight controls.
Hmm.
I love, sending the throttle up to max power, hearing the engine spool up.
Uh-huh.
Uh, when I was a kid, my favorite flight regime was the takeoff. I liked the feeling of being pushed back in my seat, and
Uh-huh.
now we're just rolling. It's
Yeah.
kind of slow, then faster and faster and faster and faster and not faster. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you feel your stomach just kind of hit the floor,
Yes.
and
And
now you're
you.
accelerating
Yep.
off. I still love that feeling. I've loved
Hmm.
that feeling ever since I was a kid.
Oh, that's nice.
So, that's exciting. And my crewmates, the captains that I fly with,
Hmm.
they're all good people.
Hmm.
They're all good people. And the FedEx ground crew, they're all good people.
Hmm.
So, I like coming to work and flying the airplanes that I was trained to fly, and
Hmm.
hanging out with the crew
Hmm.
members. It's always a good crew,
Yeah.
whether you want to hear something funny. So when I
Uh-huh.
started at FedEx, I was
Uh-huh.
working over at the ramp. That's the
Okay.
facility that the airplanes are kept right now. I started off loading caravans. So
Okay.
I'd be in the caravan, just loading the airplanes, and I was like, oh, this would be pretty cool to fly, you
Oh.
know? And then years later, I'm flying them.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted
So,
to. Yeah, I wanted to bring that connection because I remember you were working with FedEx, but oh, at that time you were the ground crew, and now you became the flight crew. Okay, cool,
yep,
cool, very good, very good.
yeah.
It's
And some of those guys that I work with,
uh-huh,
back then, and that was back in 2002, 2003.
uh-huh.
Some of those guys are still there.
Oh, okay. They must be. See, this itself. It's a very inspiring thing, where you were and where you are now. So if you have a dream and if you pursue it, you can, if you don't give it up, you don't quit, then you can make it happen. Yeah.
Well, that is the most important motivator and the best thing that you could ever have for yourself, Vetri, is
Mm-hmm.
hope. Always
Yep.
keep the hope alive
Thank
and
you.
never give up the dream, ever.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence.
So,
Thank you very much. So what skills you think, what skills do you need in order to meet these challenges? What skills you need? What do you think?
again, on the top of that list is you got to always make safety paramount.
Okay.
You always have to do that,
Hmm.
because nothing else matters if you're unsafe. You know,
Yes. Hmm.
you're gonna have an event that's
Hmm.
gonna make matters worse. Proper and current training,
Hmm.
that's important, and that's why I just got back from a training event that I have to go to annually in
Hmm.
Houston. It's a
Hmm.
5-day training event that we go through.
Hmm.
We take a check ride at the end of it, and
Hmm.
that's just to make sure that we're proficient and safe.
Hmm.
So keeping up proficiency, um, keeping up with systems knowledge, flight knowledge. Those are also important things too. Um, Critical thinking and higher order thinking skills are a very important skill to have.
Hmm.
Sometimes, we get checklists for troubleshooting all these problems,
Hmm.
but you have to know the systems well enough to know what checklist to go to.
Hmm.
Because when you have a problem and it pops up on the overhead panel, it
Hmm.
doesn't say, "Oh, pull out this emergency checklist." It's like, "Oh, I got a problem with the DC generator. Oh, so now I got to find this checklist," but it doesn't tell you go to the DC generator fault checklist. You got to figure out
Okay.
you got to figure that out. What's the proper checklist to go to,
Hmm.
which is critical because if you start doing the wrong checklists, you're going to turn something off and make matters worse.
Right.
Attention to detail. Of course, you got to listen up for what ATC is telling you, what your crewmates are telling you. You
Hmm.
have flight attendants in the back, what they're telling you. So retaining like your stick and rudder skills.
Hmm. Hmm.
Stick and rudder skills are important to have because you won't always have autopilot. There's a lot of pilots that get themselves in the habit. I'm a couple hundred feet off the ground. It's autopilot from 200 feet AGL to 200 feet AGL, and they're not flying the airplane. The airplane has been flown by the autopilot.
Hmm.
But what are you going to do when the autopilot fails and you got to fly the airplane yourself?
Hmm.
So those are more skills that you have to have.
Thank you, Adrian, for sharing this. My next question is, what are the three personality traits required in order to be successful in the aviation?
Yeah, I think, and this just doesn't apply to captain. It can apply to first officer too,
Hmm.
because we're under the mentorship of captains constantly.
Hmm.
And we run across FOs, other flight or first officers now and then, and we can exchange information. But since really all a first officer is an aspiring captain, you might as well start as a first officer being a good leader
Hmm.
and being a mentor.
Hmm.
I think those skills should start really early. When it's your time to fly, and it's your airplane, your controls, although the captain is the captain of the airplane,
Hmm.
but you're controlling the airplane right now.
Hmm.
So you tell him or her the things you want and what you want to do. And so that's a form of leadership right there. So you
Hmm.
can't be shy, and you're just really practicing to become a captain yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Another good one is, especially for first officers, being receptive, being that
Okay.
you are under the mentorship of a
Okay.
captain, being
That's
receptive,
very,
taking it all in.
yes, yes. Hmm.
Yeah, it's an important thing that you can have. And the third one is just um, being open minded and present minded. I tell you, honestly, with a lot of the captains that I fly with, um, you know, we don't have a lot in common. Our skin color is different.
Mm-hmm.
Our religious values are different.
Mm-hmm.
Our political values are different.
Mm-hmm.
You got to set aside all those. And you got to be mission oriented. None of those things matter. You can talk about those things all you want when you get on the ground or not,
Mm-hmm.
but keeping an open mind. And some captains, some people, they'll talk a lot more than others,
Mm-hmm.
but having presence of mind, and being mission oriented, being open minded, just keeping your mind on the flight,
Mm-hmm.
is a great skill to have. That's one of the things that personally, I've ran into a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it always comes back down to that common denominator, and that's safety of flight.
So what is your special advice do you have for students, who are seeking to pursue a career in aviation for the coming
Okay.
generation?
Okay. And this is for you too.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm also a student. Yes.
Okay. So I prepared a little list. One is you gotta be persistent. You gotta have the stick to itness. You gotta keep going and going, keep showing up.
Yep.
And no matter what hills and mountains get in your way, you climb them and you keep on going. As far as students go, you know, always be prepared for your lessons. Um, and, take some days to let your lessons sink in. So
Mhm.
this is what I felt in all my years of flight instructing. This is what I found to be the best schedule. Come in and fly 3 times a week consistently, maybe slip in a fourth once a month.
Mhm.
3 times a week consistently, take a day off between each lesson. Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Mhm.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, take that day in between to let things sink in and reflect. What I do correctly?
Mhm.
What I do incorrectly?
Mhm.
How am I going to fix what I did correctly
Mhm.
so it is correct for the next time? And taking that time to prepare. Um, the worst thing you can do is be inconsistent, because being
Mhm.
inconsistent builds no proficiency.
Mhm.
I've seen students that will come in 5 days out of one week, and then I'll see them twice the next week, once the next week. That's terrible. The best thing you can do is 3 times a week consistently. Um, I've actually even had a student that came in 2 times a week to fly. That's all they could do.
Mhm.
It was like a Tuesday and a Thursday, but they showed up every Tuesday and every Thursday,
Mhm.
every one of them, and every opportunity we got a chance to fly, we flew.
Mhm.
And they were better than the people I'd see 5 times this week, 3 times the next week, twice, whatever.
Mhm.
Building proficiency is going to save you a lot of money.
Mhm.
Take every chance that you get to network with other aviators. It's a small community,
Mhm.
and the more people that you know,
Mhm.
the more connections that you're going to have in the future. And you just never know who knows somebody who has a friend that works for Empire
Mhm.
and can walk your resume in, so for the chief pilot to take a look at. And last but not least, get active in your aviation community.
Mhm.
Be a mentor, be a volunteer.
Mhm.
Giving back to the aviation community is important.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adrian, for for taking the time to you know talk to me about and share your knowledge and share your experience in aviation. So I really appreciate it, and so I wish you all the best in your career. And
Thank you.
so thank you very much.
You're welcome.